Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Day. In this video, you're going to learn how to set up and use Zoom to do professional online meetings with your colleagues and your clients. If you're new to remote working, or if you just want some pro hints and tips on how to get the best out of this awesome piece of software, watch this short video and we'll explain everything you need to know. I've been working online for over 3 years. At the time of recording, I've had over 500 Zoom meetings, and I'm going to share with you all the hints and tips and everything I've learned during that time to become an absolute pro at using Zoom. Good luck, hope you enjoy it. Okay, so now we're going to look at actually signing up for a new account and take you through the steps of just getting it set up for the first time. So go to zoom.us and click on sign up, then pop in a relevant email address, click on sign up, or you can use Google, Facebook, depending on what you want to do. It just means that basically if you use these two options, then it's easier for you to log in and sign up and sign in. But if you wanted to share that login with, say, someone else who works remotely, and you could then both use the same account, it's more challenging for them to then log in using your details. So I recommend when signing up for apps, on the whole, you use a work email address and not Google or Facebook. Then sign up. What's this? They're going to send me some emails. So I'm going to say, yeah, whatever. That's fine for now. And they're going to send a confirmation email. So I'll click the link in my email and I've got this welcome to Zoom. So you basically just put your details in. I use LastPass, which is a password app that allows me to store passwords remotely so I can share logins with people. So I'm going to add this to LastPass. And it also has this cool tool which allows me to generate secure passwords. So here it needs to be 8 characters, 1 letter, 1 number, upper and lowercase, and not include series of things. So if I go to my generator, this is LastPass, uppercase or lowercase, numbers, so that's all good. So I'm actually going to fill that now, and I've just shared my password with the nation, but that's fine because this is just a temporary account and I'll change the password later. This is LastPass, so it pops in here and says, do you want to add it to my LastPass account? I do. So I'm going to add it and I'm going to put it into a folder so I can find it later. I'm going to put that into my business folder here. If I want it, there's a shared folder as well, so I could share it, for example, with my admin manager, or share, and then basically I'll put it in there, and they'll then be able to use this account instantly by simply clicking on the link or clicking on Zoom, and then it would auto-fill their details. I'll show you how that works now. So just a little tip about LastPass. So continue, and this should now create my account. So invite my colleagues, so I'm not going to do that right now. I am not a robot. Oh, I'm going to skip this step, don't want to do this. Start to test your meeting. So there is my personal meeting URL. I'm not going to do anything with that. I'm just going to go to my account so I can show you how to set up the basics. So actually, before I do that, I'm just going to log back in using LastPass just so you can see what that looks like. So I'm going to sign out and then I'm going to sign in. Okay, so using my LastPass, I can now go here and select that login I've just created. So it's called login@systemsandoutsourcing.com. And just a little note. So I created a couple of aliases for my main email account. So my email address is steve@systemsandoutsourcing.com. I've created 2 aliases, one called login and one called marketing. If I ever create a new account, I use the word login. And if I ever do anything for marketing purposes, so signing up for a freebie, I use marketing. And then both of those have got filters set up within the Gmail app, which then automatically move those into folders or labels as they're called in Gmail. And it means that they just don't go into my main inbox, which means that I have less clutter and less, especially marketing, less spam going into my inbox. They automatically get filtered out, but they're there if I want to review them at any time or find them if I need to, as I did in this case, I needed to click the activation link. Then I just search for the email and click the link. So I don't lose anything, but it just means they don't go into my inbox. So now I've basically put the details in here using LastPass, click sign in, and it's automatically signed in. As I said, you can share that now because it's in LastPass with anybody in your remote network, so they can also log in without having to give a password, openly over the internet or by any other means. So it's a really cool way to share logins. So now we've got the account. You can see here I've got upgrade to Zoom Pro. I can show you some Zoom Pro stuff a bit later on my main account. But the main restrictions with Zoom Basic are you only get 40 minutes if you want to have a meeting with 3 or more people. If it's just one-on-one, then you can have unlimited time for those meetings as well. There's a couple of other limitations that I'll show you, but for most people, a free account is absolutely fine. So let's say I just wanted to literally fire off and start a new meeting. I can host a meeting, I can host it with video on, I can host it with video off, and I can do a screen share only. So in this case, I'm just going to do video off, but I can launch this meeting and I get this meeting dialog, and this is now on my meeting going on. I can start the video at any point simply by clicking that button, unmute, this is my mic here, and then the meeting will then start. If I wanted to invite people to that meeting, click on invite. You can then send an email using Gmail or whatever your default email app is, simply by clicking this. So if I click Gmail, it'll then open up my email app and actually create an email. And in that email will be the join instructions. And so somebody can actually just click that link and then join this meeting. It gives you the password for the meeting as well, if there is one. Alternatively, you can invite people by just sending them the URL. So that is now copied to my clipboard. So then I could send that, for example, by Facebook. I'm just send it to myself, to my secondary account, and say, hi, here's the meeting link. Paste it in, it's already in my clipboard, and then that person, if I just send that. So I'm now going to log in to that meeting using my other account. We should now see a participant coming in as well. And now you can see there's now 2 people who are in this meeting. Just for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to actually switch on my camera on my other account. There you go. Now you can see me there. I'm going to show you some obvious things that you can improve when you're doing your videos. For example, don't have a window behind you with lots of brightness in it, because you end up looking like this, which is great, and no one can actually see you very well, and it's all a bit blurry, not blurry, but a bit hard to actually see. Don't have your camera positioned as this is, so it's sort of staring up your nose on the laptop. So this is about positioning your camera again, so you can have your camera up. So quite simply, if I just close this blind, you'll see the quality of the image improves drastically just by me doing that. I've got a light source, so I can move my camera now to my light source and it improves again. And then also I've put the camera up rather than being facing down, so you get this nice nose shot. So just a few tips. If I then could turn my other camera on, so you can see what this looks like. There you go. So I'm now in the meeting twice. I'm on 2 different computers. Just to add, I've not set this all up so it looks nice and lighting. So that's why this is looking a little bit dingy in places. So I can do stuff like share my screen. So if I now share my screen, click on the window I want to share, it then now shares that with all the participants. And if you maybe not be able to see this, but you can see on my other computer, you can now see I'm now sharing my screen, and they can see everything that I can see on my computer. And I'll just close this down, so I stop share, and then it pops back into this view. You can have a speaker view, so it just points on one camera. So actually it is using the camera on that view, because that's the mic that's picking it up, because I'm muted on this one. If I unmute this one and mute the other one, now it's switched there. So automatically switches to whoever is speaking. And that's useful if you've got conferencing and you want to actually focus on one person at a time, or you can have it in a gallery view like this, and it allows you to then have multiple participants. You can do some other stuff, like I mentioned before, recording things. You can type messages. You can type hi, for example, and then get a message. If I show you on here, see at the bottom there, you might be able to see there's a little orange thing that's just pinged up, and that's saying there's a chat waiting for me to answer. So it's good if you start a meeting to actually do a little chat saying, hey, this is the chat box. It brings people's attention to it so they can then chat and participate as they're going forward through the meeting as well. I'm just going to stop the video on that one and switch off my video on here as well to go back to my screen. During the meeting, if you want to change your video settings, speaker settings, you do them by coming onto these settings here. So if it's picking up the wrong microphone, if it's not coming out your speakers properly, that's how you change everything here. You can also switch over to a phone. So if your internet's really bad, but you still want to stay in the meeting, you can click switch to phone, and then actually you can log in via the phone as well. And similarly with a video, you can then switch. If you've got multiple cameras, you can switch around and pick the right camera. As one of my business partners always seems to pick up the wrong camera when he starts his meetings. Hi Adam. And then he switches to the right meeting. So again, that's a useful thing to be able to do. That's probably about all you need to know at this point. So if we exit this meeting now, so I'm going to end the meeting, and I'm going to go back to our Zoom I'm going to look at some other settings. So if you go to My Account, and in here you've got your personal meeting ID. This is a fixed meeting ID you can share with anybody. Problem with that is if you have one live meeting and then somebody clicks that link, they can join your meeting even if they weren't invited, as I said. So I just leave that switched off. Okay, so now I'm going to go through all of the settings here and just the ones you really need to be aware of. I'll try and keep this as simple as possible. Look through the basic options, and then I'll see if there's anything else I need to add in with regards to the Pro, and hopefully that will answer any questions you've got. So when you're setting up your meetings, you can set your time zone. I live in Stockholm, so mine's set there. You can integrate your calendar, which is really useful because then whenever you schedule a meeting, you can add it automatically to your calendar, and you can invite people via your calendar as well, and then keep people updated that way rather than relying on Zoom. Password, obviously, and nothing else I need to know about in this quick start guide. Meetings, you can show all the meetings that have been scheduled. I'm going to schedule a meeting in a second. Previous meetings, I'll give you a list of stuff that you've done if you like. Got personal meeting room settings. Again, I don't really use the personal meeting room. I just start a new meeting, host a meeting, or I schedule a meeting and have a unique ID for each meeting. For me, that works better. There probably is a reason for using personal meetings, but I don't do it. Meeting templates. So this is, again, once you started a meeting, you're going to change a load of settings, and then you can basically save that as a template and use that for future, so you don't have to do the settings time and time again. So it's quite a useful thing to do. Webinars, I haven't got webinars on this account. It's they are quite good, the webinars. It's basic functionality. You can't do things like call to action, so if you're in marketing, it's not the best. But for doing courses, delivery of content, a really good app, and you can have up to 10,000 people. We had 100 people in our account, and we got to about 90 in one. It was really good, stable, and good quality and easy to use. And it's good because if you are used to using one app, so Zoom meetings, if you then start doing webinars, it's a nice, easy transition rather than having to learn a whole new app. Recordings, so you have the option to either record locally or record in the cloud. The problem, this is one of the problems with Zoom, is the amount of cloud storage you actually get, even on a Pro account, is very limited, and it's very expensive to upgrade. So what we do is just to record them locally. And when you record a meeting locally, we record that to a cloud drive. So we've got Google Shared Drive. So we record it directly to a shared drive, and then it's saved into our cloud, so it doesn't clog up my hard drive, because videos get quite big. So actually reducing the amount of local storage is good, which is where the cloud storage comes in. But if you sidestep using Zoom's cloud storage by saving it, so for example, I'm going to go into settings here, and if I go to, this is one of the strange things, okay? So if you want to change the location where you save your local videos, this is what you have to do, and it's not that obvious. I'm going to open the Zoom app, you sign into Zoom here, I'll sign in with my main account, and then it opens up this Zoom meeting box. This is the Pro account, so hopefully the settings are similar in the free account. And if I then want to change the settings to where I'm going to save it, and go down to recordings, and here is where you change it. So you may be able to read here, but it says shared drive. So this is my Google Shared Drives. And you just find it in your file browser, in your file explorer, and this is under my Google Drive Stream Shared Drives. And the way I've got this set up with Google Drive Stream is that anything I save into this particular folder, which is called Company Main Video Recordings, it doesn't get saved locally. It's automatically saved in my Google account online. That reduces the amount of storage it takes up on my local drive, but make sure I've got a copy in my own shared or cloud drive rather than using the expensive Zoom storage. So hopefully that makes sense. Then on here as well, this is another quite useful thing for using this pop-up rather than using the browser version. So I'm just going to make this very clear. The one I have on the left-hand side is in the browser. The one I have on the right, a small little window. This is actually my the app that's running on my computer. Hopefully that makes sense. So if I try to schedule a meeting on the browser, I can only schedule it for a certain time. Have to schedule it at a certain time. However, if I don't know when the meeting's going to be, but I want to create a recurring meeting. So maybe I do weekly webinars, but I change the time every week, and I just want to set something up so it's there, ready to use. I can share an ID for it, share a login with people, and they can use the same login every week, but maybe I change the time. You can't do that through the actual website. You've got to do it through this app. And how you do it is to click on schedule, and then type in your meeting. So let's just call this recurring meeting ad hoc. So it's like, you can do it as and when, but you want the same login. You want to share it with your clients. Maybe we do a lot of group teaching, so that's what we use this for. And if you click recurring meetings, it gets rid of all of the time and date settings, because this is just a meeting that's going to happen when I choose it to happen, but I want it to happen multiple times, if that makes sense. And again, you can add this to your calendar, so you've got to link your calendars. You can do things like automatically record the meetings, which we do, and that's it really. So then if you click schedule, it then schedules it, but pops it into your Google, into your Google account, and then it's going to create this calendar event in my calendar with all the links and everything. I can invite guests via the calendar as well, so I don't have to do it all via Zoom. I can do it for my preferred calendar app. I use Google Calendar for this, and then I can actually reschedule that if I want to, just via the calendar event. The link stays the same because this is a recurring meeting, and it gives all the phone dial-in information. I've chosen just to provide UK. You can, in the settings, select which countries you want to actually give the dial-in information for, and also that gives you this website, so no matter where someone is in the world, they can get a local number and dial in. So apart from scheduling ad hoc recurring meetings and changing the record location of your app, there are some other settings which you can only do from the app and not from the web browser. So if you can't find something, have a look in the app version. So you need to download the app version and then open it up, sign in as I did before, and then go to the settings here, and there's a bunch more settings. You do get some settings in the browser-based version, but not all of them, and that's where you find them. That took me a while to figure out, so that's why I'm sharing it with you now. If we go back to the settings, so you have different types of settings. So meeting, recording, telephone. So meeting settings, I'm just going to point out some of the main ones. So you can have passwords set up for your meetings. I rarely use passwords. The links, I only have one-time links unless it's a recurring meeting, and I only share that with my clients. If you had paid for meetings, for example, then maybe you can use passwords and things, but I've not found it to be something that I personally use. You can do it. One useful thing, especially if you're having a meeting with a lot of people, is to mute participants on entry. If you don't want people to disturb you when you're halfway through a meeting and somebody joins late or 10 minutes in, it can be quite disturbing when their background noise is high, or their dog's barking, or the kids are crying or something, and then suddenly you're halfway through your flow, or you're in your flow, and then someone joins a meeting and it really just disturbs you, basically. So that's a really useful thing to put on. It does mean, though, however, you then need to remember to tell people to unmute themselves if they want to say hi or they want to actually participate in the meeting. So it depends on the type of meeting, size of the meeting, and if you expect people to come in late and sort of not have a professional or quiet setup on their side, then that could be quite a useful thing to do. You can do some things like enable and disable chat, as in the text chat. You can enable and disable private chat. Personally, I just leave those both on. If you're having a webinar type meeting, disabling private chat in those instances could be good, because then you can keep all the conversation and discussion visible to everybody. So that's a sort of occasion when you might want to do that. Automatically saving all meeting chats. So that's quite a useful thing if it's something that you want to refer back to. Quite good for Q&A sessions, as it allows you to then go back and review the questions that were asked, and then you can update your presentation for next time, for example. Play a sound when participants join and leave. Again, for many types of meetings, this is quite useful. It's a chime, you heard it before, chime, so you get alerted when somebody new joins. Very useful if you're waiting for people to arrive and you're working in the background, and then you can be alerted to when they come in, so they don't sort of wait, or they don't see you picking your nose or something when you're waiting for them to actually join, and that can be quite good. But again, you can just turn it off if it's going to be a large meeting. You don't want it to continue going bing, bing, bing every time one of 100 people or 20 people or whatever join the meeting. You can do some quite cool stuff like display end of meeting feedback surveys. Whiteboard, if you're going to use the whiteboard, you need to practice. It really isn't that easy, especially if you're using a mouse. If you're using if you've got a pen pad, a digital pen pad, and you practice using it, it can be really good. But definitely practice before you use it. One thing I would definitely turn off is to turn off annotations, because inadvertently people can end up typing onto your screen while you're giving a presentation, and it sort of sits there. And it can be really distracting, especially if they didn't realize what they're going to do, or they put some big lines across your slides, and it looks really unprofessional. So turn that off. And also, I would turn off whiteboards so other people can't use it. And non-verbal feedback is things like, I think there's hands up, clapping. There's a few other things you can do. Again, it's good for meetings when you get used to it and the participants are used to coming to the meetings, but it's sort of quite advanced stuff, not something I would bother about in the beginning. Lots of other functionality, breakout rooms, remote support. So for example, you can one-to-one support allows you to take control of somebody else's computer through Zoom. It's brilliant for doing tech support and stuff, not really normally needed for the general meeting. You can also use virtual backgrounds. So for example, if you've got a really messy room, I'd put a sheet up behind me, but then you can also have a virtual background so it can make it look a bit more appealing. They can be a bit like your sort of a head floating in space. Again, it's not something I would do without practicing first. A lot of this stuff you need to have a little go at before you actually do it live for the first time. Otherwise, you'll end up looking pretty unprofessional. Although it can be quite funny when it all goes terribly wrong, as long as you have a good sense of humour. Anything else that you really need to know? So waiting room is quite a useful thing. So if you're scheduling a meeting and there's going to be a number of people there, they're probably going to arrive a bit early, and it allows people to be admitted to a waiting room. And then you can then select when people come in. Where we use this is when we have back-to-back one-to-one meetings scheduled, and we then can give the same meeting ID to a number of people. They can all come along at their given time, but if we're overrunning with one of our clients for a few minutes, then it doesn't mean that the next client can sort of join that meeting and interrupt us. We get alerted as the host that next client is waiting, so we can wrap up the meeting and move on as quickly as possible. The person who's having the current one-to-one is totally unaware of this. We're just having a nice meeting, and then we go, okay, I'm going to have to go, got my next client waiting, and we can say goodbye to that current client, and then once they've left the meeting, you can then just invite the next person who's in the waiting queue to be able to then come in. I'll just show you how the waiting room works. I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to host a new meeting. Then when you start a meeting, it's a really good idea to open up the Manage Participants window. And the reason for that is as soon as somebody else joins the meeting, you'll see they'll pop in to that little participants window. There's the chime, which I had switched on, so it allows me to know that someone else is now waiting. And you can see here, one person is now waiting, and you can then admit that person. So I'm going to close this meeting down. So end meeting, click on end meeting. Other than waiting room, there's one more really useful function here. Join from your browser link. So what that enables you to do is to allow people to log into a Zoom meeting without downloading the app. So if someone's using an older smartphone, or they haven't got the app and they don't want to install it, or maybe it's a company phone and they're not allowed to install any apps, then this is a really good function. It allows them to basically log in just via a browser. It does limit the functionality, so they can't do quite as much. I think they can't share screen and things, but it means they can participate in the meeting and speak and hear and all the rest of it, but with some limitations on what they can and can't do. So if we go back up here, we've got user management. So user management is really for paid accounts. I might have to log into my other account just to show you this. So I'm going to log out and log back into my pro account. So now in my pro account, you can see here's all my upcoming meetings. We've got 144 scheduled meetings. Here's all my previous meetings. On here, I've got 425 previous meetings. Anyway, so back to what I wanted to show you, user management. So if I click on my user management here, so I've got a paid account and I've got 5 licenses. And that allows me to have different users with different privileges. The main reason for having users is so they can set up meetings and host meetings and participate in the admin of the Zoom app or in the delivery of the meeting. You do not need users, obviously, for everyone who's joining your meeting. They are guests. Just thought I'd mention that in case that was unclear. Groups, if you have lots of users, you can group them together. We don't. Roles gives you specific what each type of role and what they can or can't do, and you can change that. Give them permissions to do all different types of things like billing, about management, about setup, about changing dashboards, or everything. So it's a really, really comprehensive app when your team starts to grow and you want to delegate administration roles or just have somebody else do stuff for you, then you can be really granular about what you allow them to or not to be able to do. Rooms is an app which allows you to have a conference in a room using Zoom meetings and a web browser without having to have any of the fancy in-room software or hardware. So it's not an online room where you break out. That's a breakout room or that's a Zoom meeting. This is something for a physical location. And what it allows you to do is to have your computer on your laptop, for example, and you have a screen up on the wall which you log into a browser, and then you can then cast your content of your laptop directly onto your screen on the wall without having any other cables or any other fancy software, just using the internet. And you can obviously stream that live at the same time, so you can have virtual meetings and in-room meetings as well. So that's not something that most people need, and I got quite confused about it for a while, which is why I'm mentioning it now. Account management is all billing and all the rest of it, and you can change your profile details and stuff. So one thing I would do as well, I should have mentioned this at the beginning really with your basic setup, is to go to your account and to change or to set your name straight away, if you've not already done that, and add a photo. So do that by clicking change photo, and then you can upload a nice photo and crop it as you want to. I'm just going to cancel that for the sake of this. Finally, a couple of other just useful things. Support, obviously support from Zoom, really good. They also have video tutorials on lots of stuff, a great knowledge base as well, so you can ask questions, and most of the stuff you'll ever want to know has already been asked in the past, so there's often answers on there which really helps you get cracking with it if you need to know anything more after my incredibly detailed and wonderful explanation. So that's about it really. Pricing plans, just to really show you free, that's what most people start with. The main limitations are that if you're having more than one person or one guest, then you are limited to 40 minutes per that meeting. You have an unlimited number of meetings though, so there's no restrictions on there. If you want to have people be able to dial in by phone for free, you need to upgrade to the Pro. Also, you can have meetings up to 24 hours with up to 100 people. So that's ample for most people. You only get 1 gigabyte of storage, which is just nothing when you're talking about videos. That's a couple of hours worth of video. It gets used up so quickly that we basically just sidetrack it, as I said, and use our own storage for that, and just basically save things into that cloud storage directly. This is the account that we have. We have the Pro. We don't have business. We've not yet found a need for it. It's totally for our purposes, and we've been using this for hundreds and hundreds of meetings for 3 years. And Pro was all we've ever needed. And that's about it. So that's my overview of the settings and everything from Zoom meetings.